And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Thursday, December 26th. This outlook will be for Friday and into Saturday. And to set things up, we do have an area of low pressure, at least on this Thursday, the 26th, that's going to be trying to pull back some moisture across Prince William Sound up into the Copper River Basin. That'll happen as we go through Thursday night, early Friday morning. And so some snow will, moderate to locally heavier snow will occur around Valdez, Thompson Pass areas. So we expect IFR conditions there early Friday morning. Pockets of IFR, northern panhandle and inner coastal mountains there up against British Columbia. There's another trough of low pressure coming in from the southwest that enough instability could exist for some convective rain showers that may have a little bit of thunder or a flash or two of lightning out over the lower southeastern Gulf, especially off of Sitka and Craig Friday morning. Back to the north, widespread IFR conditions, eastern interior up along the Beaufort Sea coast and then down along the Chukchi Sea coast through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence, all the way just off of the Kuskokwim and Bristol Bay areas into the southeast Bering. IFR conditions are expected. For Friday afternoon, we still find IFR conditions lingering across the eastern half of the Brooks Range, Yukon Flats down through Fairbanks, central Alaska Range. There is a stationary front that has been sitting across this area prior to Christmas, and it's moving a little further eastward. There is a batch of Arctic air that's going to just brush the North Slope and Arctic coast this weekend. It's not really going to penetrate farther south, but nevertheless, you're going to experience some much colder sub-zero temperatures throughout this region for the weekend. And then for Friday afternoon, there still could be a flash of lightning, rumble of thunder out over areas of the northeastern Gulf. And then as we look farther west, IFR conditions associated with a double barrel low that'll be coming in first to the western central Aleutians, and then another low that comes up a little later in the weekend from the North Pacific. So as we get into Saturday, we still have some IFR conditions, northern panhandle, Haines, Skagway up toward White and Chilkoot passes, MVFR for much of the rest of the panhandle and out along the Gulf Coast. A bit of that moisture will work its way northward rather quickly that came in off the Gulf, and as that interacts with that, what's left of a front there is going to leave IFR conditions still along portions of the Brooks Range and in through the east central interior. And then to the west, we have some gale force winds and the low pressure lifting north with an area of IFR conditions. Western Aleutians entering up into the southwest Bering with a frontal system that will bring some IFR conditions to the middle Aleutians, with yet another low down here that'll eventually pivot up from the south as we go into Saturday night and Sunday. So by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, we have MVFR conditions over much of the panhandle, along the Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin, still IFR along the Elcan border from almost near Kaktovik through Arctic Village, down south to Fairbanks and along the Alaska Range. Further west, IFR conditions pushing in through the central Bering Sea associated with the initial low, and then the frontal system that extends further to the south to that next low that's down there in the North Pacific yet to emerge. But in the meantime, Anaktuvik Pass should stay in IFR conditions, lower cloud cover ceilings, maybe a little bit of light snow and lower visibilities. And same thing, Atigun Pass, mainly lower ceilings and visibilities through the pass and potentially some areas of light snow. Lake Clark and Merrill, MVFR conditions expected west arm of the Alaska Range for Friday. Rainy Pass, generally IFR conditions should hold on Friday. Same thing at Windy Pass. And then as we go further east, Isabel Pass may start out IFR with those lower ceilings, especially there in the morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And then farther east, Mentasta Pass should generally be VFR on Friday. As we drop down to the Copper River Basin, Tanita Pass, MVFR, but as you go northward up along the Talkeetna Mountains, expect IFR conditions there. Portage Pass, we have MVFR conditions for the most part, except for the east entrance and out over Prince William Sound early in the day, IFR will tend to hold, and then MVFR conditions will be the case there throughout the west entrance and most of the pass. Chilcoot and White will remain IFR on Friday there across the northern panhandle. And looking at the temperatures, freezing line, surface freezing level or line runs over the lower Bering along the central eastern Aleutian chain, up along the Alaska Peninsula, along the eastern Kenai, and then right along the northern Gulf Coast into the inner channels of the central and southern panhandle. We find freezing levels aloft only around and a bit above 2,000 feet over the southwest quadrant of the panhandle back toward Haida Gwaii. We don't have any really notable domes of warm, moist air aloft that typically are associated with strong frontal systems and or low pressure systems. Just not anything like that on the map right now. And looking at Friday, we're anticipating, though, some lower cloud cover. Within these clouds, if they're producing precipitation, may find some moderate icing over the panhandle on Friday above 4,000 feet. And there is some moisture that is going to be working its way up across the Alaska Range into the interior. We could find some areas of moderate icing there, but especially only above 2,000 feet. There is plenty of cold air in place across the far north and then back to the west. Above 4,000 feet in the western Aleutians as the result of that next low and frontal system working its way into the western and central Aleutians on Friday, along with some stronger winds. So the upper level jet stream pattern fairly quiet over the southern central mainland. We do have a little bit of a trophy dip here over eastern Russia, southwest flow, the Seward Peninsula on up toward the northwest coast. Stronger system down here coming into the continental U.S., places like Washington, Oregon. You have a jet core over 115 knots. And then here out to the west, here's the hints. Anticyclonically curved, what we call jet streak of 125 knots pushing up into the western half of the Aleutians on Friday. And then you can see stronger winds with the front 50 to as high as 75 knots southwest of the Aleutians on Friday. That's in the North Pacific, and then up across eastern Russia, generally west to southwest flow around 35 knots. But as you can see, mid-levels, this is 700 millibars, 9,000 feet. No really strong, notable winds over the mainland anywhere. And even if I back up a little bit here, we see a little bit of a southerly flow coming up there east of Haida Gwaii up into coastal areas of British Columbia. And then for 3,000 feet, there is a little belt of winds along the western coast of the panhandle out here in the northeastern Gulf. The winds could be 30, locally 35 knots. We still have northerly flow, but diminishing over the eastern Aleutians, tip of the Alaska Peninsula, generally around 30 knots as well. Little pocket of some stronger winds just east of Kaktovik around the McKenzie River entrance there, about 35 knots from the northwest. But here again, most notably, winds at 3,000 feet associated with low pressure and a frontal system approaching the western central Aleutians. We have winds that increase upwards of 35 to as much as 60 and 65 knots. And of course, this area here will experience moderate turbulence on Friday out through the western Aleutians, surface to 3,000 feet. And there could still be a pocket of moderate turbulence into the central eastern Aleutians there yet into Friday. And then as I back up, there's a little belt of stronger winds from the southern panhandle to just along the coast there up into the northeastern Gulf. So there could be some areas of moderate turbulence there on Friday from the surface to 6,000 feet.